What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Yankees Avenue Show on the Yankees Avenue YouTube channel. As usual, I'm Patrick Hennessy. That's Dan Rourke. Dan, how are we doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. Yankees blow. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, despite the fact that the Yankees are basically a non-contender this year for the first time in a while, life is good, bro. We wake up every morning, the sun's shining, can't complain, right? We have a lot to talk about in today's episode. Nothing really too crazy, but we're gonna make it crazy, right? Get that buckle it in. Let's ride, maybe.
I
I
love the
don't know.
energy, dude. I think I'm past that point now. And
Okay,
you all
yeah.
know how I am with the optimism, but these are like the dog days of summer, and I'm not enjoying it for the first time in a while.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
bad?
No. Let's talk about it. Before we do that, though, want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, FOCO. Use code Yankees Avenue, save 15% off your order. If you haven't checked them out, do it. But kind of referring back to what you just said, starting topic number one. The Yankees lost the series to the Chicago White Sox, one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. They're the definition of dysfunction, coming fresh off that Tim Anderson knockout, which we talked about last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely insane. I thought we were coming into the series and it was going to be one of those pick me ups where the Yankees win 2 out of 3, maybe even sweep, and then we feel like, ooh, are the Yankees maybe back coming out of the series? But we don't have that. They lost the series and now they are just 3 games over 500 and 5.5 games back of a wild card spot. And we're in those dog days of August, right? The day this episode comes out is August 11th. This is the time of year I start to get bored of the Yankees anyway. It seems like every year, mid-August, I start to lose interest a little bit. And it's fine, though, because September rolls around and I'm like, yo, we are close to the playoffs. And then vibes start to come back up. The main difference with the Yankees this season is that the vibes are dropping because we're in those dog days of August and things are starting to get a little stale and however you want to call it. But the only difference is we most likely don't have a pick me up coming in September where we could be like, yo, the playoffs are right around the corner. The vibes are back up. So as of right now, does the 2023 season just feel over to you?
Honestly speaking, yes. From the standpoint of making the playoffs, I really do feel that way. And this was a week that I said on last week's show that the Yankees had to probably only lose one game. The White Sox, you have the Marlins. I was hoping you'd sweep one of these series, then take 2 out of 3 from the next one, or whatever order you want to do it in. They didn't do that. They lost 2 out of 3, and it was just another terrible series. The Yankees offense, while getting base runners on, were 3 for 26 with runners in scoring position, struck out 38 times, left 29 runners on base. Losing Monday with Garrett Cole in the bump. The state the Yankees are in right now, you cannot lose any Cole games. And once you lost that one, I was like, shit, dude, we really might just be in. And I guess I have a moment every series where I feel this way, where it's like a punch in the gut, realization this really may be a lost season. And once again, that happened in Chicago. It was a terrible series. Now just 3 games over 500. I think we're 5 back now because the Whites or the Blue Jays did lose on Thursday. 2 teams ahead of us, bro. Now I'm more so just worried about like, shit, is the Yankees record of what was it, 30 years, 30 straight seasons of being above 500 or having a winning season, quote unquote. That's kind of now where my headset is at. Not that that's a huge deal, but like no, the Yankees aren't making the playoffs, dude. I really truly believe that. And it takes me a long time to say that. 2021, dude, took them to the very end. And guess what? Playoffs wise, it worked out. They got in. I truly believe that team would in the end make it, and they did. This team, for quite some time, I had that same sentiment for probably all the way through June, July, and a little bit into August. Like there's times where this team would make you have a little bit of faith, and then they quickly, very quickly take it away. And yeah, dude. So another shitty series, and don't think the Yankees make the playoffs. That's where I'm at. So sure, 2023 season is over. So weird to hear that come out of my mouth, bro. I don't talk that way. I
No,
don't.
it's weird for sure, and like I get it, like the down vibes coming into today's episode, and I think that's maybe why I'm on the opposite end because I feel like I'm so past that stage at this point where it's just, bro, it's funny watching the 2023 New York Yankees because I no longer have any expectations. Obviously, it sucks to see them like continuously just lose games and blow games, bro. Sevy's coming in. It doesn't matter if he's starting games or if he's coming in out of the bullpen. He's giving up bombs regardless to no names. The Yankees are a circus. And I think at some point, everyone, if they haven't come to that realization already, has to come to that realization and stop setting the bar high for this team. If anybody's still going into series like looking for W's and expecting W's, they haven't been watching this team all season. And I guess it's just a natural thing to do to want to see the Yankees win, but it's just not realistic at this point. And I watched this team throughout this White Sox series, and it was painful, bro. Like the at bats were painful. The bullpen was painful. Everyone was painful, really, besides Garrett Cole. Shout out to Garrett Cole. And it's just a shame because he was forced to throw so many pitches and come back out. I think it was for the eighth. And then he gives up 2 singles. And of course, I think it was Canely that gave up like the bases clearing double. And then Cole really has 4 earned runs. So it's just, I don't know. The team's frustrating, but I just can't get myself so worked up about them anymore. I feel like this is the same topic we have every episode where it's just like the Yankees are a lost cause, and that's just who they are at this point. Maybe we just look forward to the offseason, maybe hope for some change. We'll talk about that soon. And go into 2024 with a clean slate. But it's difficult to have the mentality while looking at this roster and being like, there's not many things that they even can change, right? Whether that's free agency or trade or dropping some players. So I don't know. It's just a weird spot for the New York Yankees. That's why all you could really do at this point, sit back, pick your feet up, bro, grab some popcorn, maybe white cheddar. It's a pretty good flavor, and just watch the games, bro, and have zero expectations for what happens.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I still go into games with expectations that they might win. Like, I'll have my hopes up. I'll still feel like that's some sense of joy watching a baseball game for maybe about 5 minutes, and then it quickly goes away. Cole starts, lasts a couple innings, and then, shit hits the fan. But it's the same old story, man. I mean, yeah, Garrett Cole is great. I actually think the bullpen, I mean, Canely had a blowout, and, he's been struggling a bit lately. But overall, the bullpen, I think, was fine. The offense is terrible. Luis Severino is terrible. It's to the point now, dude, where it kind of sucks that we have 2 more months of this because chalk it up, we know what it is. This team just is not good right now. There's many glaring holes, and they show that every single series. Are they the worst team in baseball? No. But there's something the Yankees should never be, and that's average. They are an average baseball team, which is unacceptable for a roster that is $290 million worth of players. And we all know who that falls onto. We'll talk about Brian Cashman a little bit later. But yeah, dude, it's the same song and dance that we've been talking about every 3 days, 2 times a week. This Yankees team is pathetically average. They have disappointed us greatly, and we're going to miss the playoffs. So there's almost so much more I can talk about in terms of the actual analysis of the team because we know what the situation is. It's now just get to the offseason and see if this can be saved.
Well, that's why I say, you can't really even look at the current state of the team anymore because it's just a circus. That's why you could only do 2 things, right? Look forward or look behind. And one thing that I do want to do looking behind is look at the trade deadline really quickly because I think seeing how bad the Yankees have been, they've been worse since the trade deadline, I guess you could say. It makes me even more upset that they just stood back and did nothing because at this point, if the Yankees were 5.5 games out of a wildcard spot and they were playing this poorly, but they had sold at the deadline, I don't think I'd be as disinterested and disappointed as I am right now because at least I would know yo, this is what was supposed to happen. Like we trade away our guys, we got some things in return, and this is what it is. But the fact that you sat back and did nothing, expecting this team to go out and make the playoffs, that's what bothers me. Because, bro, it's if you're gonna sit back and do nothing, at least add some pieces. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's why looking back at the trade deadline, and then comparing it to the current state of the team, it just makes me even more mad because it's something could have been done on either side to prevent this from happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so over talking about the trade deadline, but I would say this definitely reinforces that they probably shouldn't have bought, which is good they didn't buy. You're implying, I guess, that they should have sold. Even that, there wasn't enough players to make a substantial difference. But in terms of the intent of where the season was headed, it would have added up. Okay, you're accepting defeat and then you continue to lose. Easy equation. I get what you're saying. I'm so over this roster. I'm ready for it to be done. And once again, it sucks we have another.
How do you change it?
First thing that pops into my head, I was trying to, for the first time, thinking about potential offseason. And one first case scenario would be Shohei Ohtani. But that aside, I think you let Bader walk. You bring in Bellinger, assuming it's not a crazy deal. That's your one big free agent deal, if you will, because they're going to add to this team in some regard. You just hope it's the right move. So let Bader walk, bring in Bellinger. I think, and we'll talk about this, Everson Pereira will be up. I think he'll be the Yankees left fielder next year. That's my hot take. So you go in with an outfield of left field Pereira, who's number 4 prospect right now, and it's raking. Center field Bellinger, right field Judge. First base, you'll have Rizzo. Second base, you'll have Glaber. Shortstop Volpe, of course. Third base, although DJ's been hitting great, better at least since the All-Star break. He's been a 120 OPS plus hitter, batting 300, 400 OBP. I'm not going to use that as a reason to have him go into next year as our third baseman. Candelario's a free agent. I still would want to take a flyer on him. Won't cost all that much. Switch hitter, decent hitter. Sign him, sign Bellinger. And then also, if you can, get a fucking catcher. And I'm not saying pull some magical 800 OPS guy out of thin air, but you need to improve the catching. You can't be like, oh, Jose Trevino is going to come back healthy and hit like the aberration he was for the first 6 weeks of 2022. No, Jose Trevino's not a good hitter. Kyle Higashioka is not a good hitter. While they show glimpses from time to time, they're defense first catchers, which is, what catchers are, I understand. But find somebody who can hit a little bit. Give me a 700 OPS for God's sakes. So in my quick little preview to potential like offseason blueprint, sign Bellinger, let Bader walk, sign Candelario, have DJB on the bench, and then get some competent catcher that is decent at the plate. Or then your other typical patchwork. You'll have to get probably a starter and then like a reliever, but I do trust them in the pitching end of things. So that's my early thoughts on what you could maybe do. Because one last thing, the Yankees will compete next year. You know for a fact they'll compete. Like that's what their attitude will be going into next season. So you just got to hope they make the right moves. And not off the top of my head, I thought about it a little bit, but like early thoughts. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, if I'm taking a quick look at the offseason, regarding catcher, I think if they view Austin Wells as a catcher moving forward, he needs to just be starting on opening day. That's the way I view it. Give him the Volpe treatment. Maybe they learn from Volpe. Maybe they realize, oh, maybe you call a guy up too early. You don't see too much success, so maybe that'll prevent them from doing so. But I would say by like June 1st, 2024, and barring any injuries, Austin Wells is not your starting catcher. It's a problem. And then as far as offseason acquisitions go, Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani, Shohei Ohtani, Shohei Ohtani, Shohei Ohtani.
I'm with you. No,
bro,
I'm really with you.
That is the only guy this free agency where you go out and you get him and it changes everything. It erases 2023, bro. The 2023 lost season is in the dirt. And I'm sure we'll talk about Ohtani to death this offseason, just about every topic, every rumor. Oh, the Yankees are flying him out. Oh, he's visiting Yankee Stadium. I'm sure we'll get all this stuff, but all it should come down to is whether or not Ohtani wants to come to New York. I think that's the only thing that it should come down to. I don't want to hear anything about budgetary constraints. I don't want to hear anything about like, oh, we have all these contracts locked up. Oh, we don't have a spot for him to play. I've already heard people being like, oh, Stanton's your DH. Where do you play Ohtani?
Make it work.
Bro, when the greatest player, and this feels like I'm like glazing him a little bit, but like, bro, Shohei Ohtani is the greatest player of our generation. Let's call it like we see it. We're talking about a guy
history, dude.
Yes. Yeah. One of the greatest players in history. When he is available on the free agent market and the Yankees are in such a desperate situation as they are now, you hand that man a blank check. And if it's like a Harper situation where they don't even give him a conversation, it would just be despicable. So I think all the Yankees could do right now to improve their team this offseason is going out and getting Shohei Ohtani.
That's the one that would cleanse this season for me. The offseason that I mentioned was more of like a realistic, because I still just, I can't wrap my head around the fact that or the notion that Ohtani might happen. It could. I think we're headed more so for what I said, but that wouldn't cleanse this year. Ohtani would. It would make me forget about all the troubles that we've been put through so far and will continue for the next 2 months. If you go out and get Ohtani, and here's the thing, you think they'll at least have a conversation with him, right? They'll have a meeting, and you don't go into a meeting like you would absolutely pray to God think, yes. You don't even take that meeting if you're not going to at least entertain the idea of making that sort of financial commitment, which going in is at least $500 million. So if you're not even thinking that that's possible, why are you going to meet with the guy? And I think the Yankees will meet with the guy. So I'd like to think it's possible. I think they'll make some sort of an offer. You're right. It does a lot more so come down to, will he want to play in New York? He didn't want to 5 or 6 years ago. But speaking of 5 or 6 years ago, the Yankees really wanted him bad. Brian Cashman thought he was going to get Ohtani. And we all know the deal, the domino effect, how, ended up turning into Stanton coming to the Yankees, totally changed the history of this team. But yeah, man, no, that would change things. If we were to get Ohtani, it would change absolutely everything. And as for the Stanton thing, you make it work, dude. I don't care if he's a DH. You make that work. Whether it's finding a trade or even if not, have him play left. Yes, no, it's everything. And in terms of the morale, it would restore us back to glory, in my opinion, which is such a win the offseason kind of take. But honestly, it would. If you get Shohei Ohtani, shit is fixed. And it would really satisfy me because Ohtani, I feel like, is often used as like a fuck you to Yankee fans. From the one that we didn't get him into like Judge versus Ohtani, which, yeah, Ohtani's better than Judge. He's the greatest player of all time. Not a better hitter. Judge is a better hitter, but better player, obviously, it's Ohtani. Shit, if we had them both, bro, that would be fun. That would then be like the total, like, reverse middle finger to the baseball community, which oftentimes I like to exercise when I can.
Bro, it's crazy because like then it would just be a sign that like the Yankees front office cares, right? Like you go out and get Otani after not making the playoffs, and it just like it would be such a old school Yankee thing to do. It'd be very
Mm.
reminiscent of like, yo, you missed the postseason in 2008, 2009, you come out, you sign CC, Burnett, Teixeira, and just show that, yo, now we have to go all in because we're not being a laughing stock again. So I guess we'll see. But I don't know, bro. Very interesting offseason on the way.
I think they'll be in the top 5 of the offers. I would like to think
I
so.
would they
Like,
I would if they're not number one, I'll be upset.
and top 5 means, which is crazy. Get top 5, you don't enter the conversation unless you're willing to give $500 million. And the Yankees wanted Otani so bad 6 years ago that I believe they'll be involved.
The price was
So
also a lot lower 6 years ago, though.
very much so. Absolutely, that's a
Yeah.
good point. We'll see.
But yeah, topic number 2. Let's talk about the offseason a little bit more. Bob Klapisch of NJ.com reported that Hal Steinbrenner firing Brian Cashman is not even on the table this offseason and not up for discussion. Both quotes. With that said, apparently Aaron Boone's fate is much less certain than Cashman, and it's very possible that he will lose his job at the end of the year, especially if the Yankees do not make the postseason. I read the article, not really too sure. Now, listen, Klapisch obviously has an in the Yankees organization. He wrote that book. What was Inside the Empire?
Inside
Pretty
the
good
Empire.
book about the
Phenomenal book,
2018
which is
season.
horrible to read now, along with Brian Hoke's Baby Bombers. If you were to read that in 2023, because it's a lot, the Inside the Empire book is about the 2018 season, and everything was so
Yeah,
bright, so like, oh, it was a beautiful
yeah,
time. And guess who fucked it up?
yeah. Brian Cashman, sure. And that's why I think it's very disturbing to hear this report. Now, obviously, it's not set in stone that Cashman's back next season, but it seems very likely at this point, and it seems like Boone might be the fall guy. Which is a little bit surprising because I always assume like Hal, Cashman, Boone, kind of like the three-headed monster. But I think what it truthfully is it's Hal and Cashman kind of running things, and Boone thinks he's one of them, but he's really just a pawn at the end of the day. And I think him being fired at the end of the season, as much as I do want to see a new manager managing the Yankees, I don't think firing Boone does anything because I don't think he's a good fit. I don't think he's a great manager. But is he the reason the Yankees are bad this season? No. I think the blame for that is Brian Cashman. And I think by keeping Cashman, getting rid of Boone, sure, you get a fresh face. Sure, you get some different vibes going on in the clubhouse. But I don't think that it changes things as much as if you were to get rid of Cashman and Boone rather than just Boone. But yeah, let me get your little thoughts on this report.
Yeah, I think it's totally them just making Boone the scapegoat, which, I mean, even if you believe Clappish or not, this kind of seems exactly where we're headed. I mean, a lot of people could have predicted this. Cashman's going to be retained. He has 3 more years left in his deal. Boone only has 1. They're going to make him the scapegoat out of all this. And I agree with everything you said. I've been saying that for a while. Absolutely. Boone is not his fault. Well, yes, he's not perfect. In the end, it falls on the players, who they're also not at fault either. They're here because of Brian Cashman, who had a $290 million payroll that he just allocated terribly, very top heavy, and we're seeing the results of that. This team is terrible, as we just talked about. What does concern me a little bit, and I'm gonna go a little bit on a different road than I usually do. A little annoyed at Hal Steinberg because, one, I read the article. 2, Clappish was also on the Michael K show where he was talking about, and this is something that does concern me because it's not exactly what I thought. I always thought Hal does care a lot, which of course he does. It's his business. He's ahead of it. He's going to care. But the vibe that I got, and kind of what Clappish was telling us, is that, first of all, Hal never really wanted to own the Yankees. And not that that's a big secret, but apparently he wasn't thrilled, especially also like leading up to Hank, his brother's passing, because it was them 2 in charge. After George, operations went to the kids, it was Hal and Hank. And then, of course, George passed away. And then Hank passed away in 2020. It's all on Hal now. And apparently that's not what he had in mind for his life, let's just say. Now, of course, that's not a bad thing to have happen to you. You're the fucking owner of the New York Yankees. Congratulations. But with that said, he just hands it off to Cashman and says, you take care of this. And he trusts Cashman. Like Cashman, people have said this a lot. Cashman might as well be happy. He might as well be the owner of the Yankees. And I think that came more true in this article and more true in what Clappish said to the Michael K show. It really seems like Hal is kind of, like step back, let Cashman run anything. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So he says, if this is true, dude, this is why it's really scary about this coming off season, because I know my fate, or the Yankees' fate, but same fucking thing, is going to be in the hands of Brian Cashman again. and not just this year. I'm concerned that, dude, this may go on past this extension now, which is why I totally believe for this report. Like, it makes sense that Hal would not let Cashman go. So this doesn't come as a surprise to me at all. It doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's just so troubling. I mean, obviously we've known for a while that I don't even think George wanted Hal to take over. Wasn't there like a whole thing he wanted his daughter's
Oh,
husband,
right.
but
Yes.
then like they got divorced or whatever, and
Jared something. Yeah, they're
yeah.
not a thing anymore, but he was involved in that. Yeah. And Howell thought
Yeah,
that was the
and
case as well, that he was going to be the dude mostly taken over, and that fell apart.
yeah, and when Hal and Hank took over, Hank was always viewed as the baseball mind, and Hal was always the business mind. And now I think it's just extremely evident that all the Yankees do have, as owners, is business minded. Doesn't really seem like there's too much focus on the baseball aspect, but it's just frustrating, bro. I think one thing that we can conclude is Brian Cashman is essentially untouchable, and it seems like he will have that position. Now, obviously, this is just an assumption, right? But it seems like he will have that position until he doesn't want it anymore, and that just seems like it's Hal being very comfortable with where Cashman's guiding him and how he's allocating his money, and it's troubling, very troubling for the future of the organization because I looked at this offseason and one of my very saving graces was that we might have a new GM that would come in and realize, yo, I'm the GM of the New York Yankees. I need to shake things up and prove a point and go out and give Otani $700 million or go out and do literally whatever it takes to bring the Yankees back to the top. And I don't think Cashman will ever have that fire beneath him again. I don't think he needs to. I think he's in a very comfortable situation. Like I said, he's basically untouchable. He doesn't have anybody behind him being like, yo, if we miss the playoffs this year, like your job might be on the line because there will always be a scapegoat. There will always be someone else to point the blame on. There will always be an Aaron Boone, right? Boone can be the scapegoat this year. Maybe next year you have somebody else. But I think it's just frustrating that we will likely not see a new face as the Yankees GM for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I was getting my hopes up too about that. And as long as they last, which may only be for a few minutes, they quickly go away because of stories like this. Cashman is going to, at least for the remainder of this contract, he's going to be sticking around. And one thing I'll say in terms of Otani, that'll flat out just come down to Hal. Like, of course, Cashman will want him. It's just a matter of, is Hal willing to put up the money for it? Dude,
But
one thing
why
I really
wouldn't
want
you
to,
be? Like,
I
obviously, we
did.
don't know what goes on in their head, but
It's
like, why?
so beyond us to where it's like, dude, we think the Yankees make a lot of money. We know they make a lot of money. You'd like to think they would reinvest it into the field. If they don't, it's just the same old dance, like what we talk about every single year. Like, why don't they spend more? It's ridiculous. But anyways, on the topic of that, like what my criticism of Hal or why I usually back up Hal is, and this is valid, I still stand by this. In the end, like $290 million would fetch you a way better baseball team than one that's currently over 3 games over 500. And that is my main issue with Brian Cashman. While I criticized him a lot and celebrated him, like there's times I celebrate Cashman, not so much lately whatsoever, but the calling viciously for his job, it was not coming after the Yankees get bounced by the Astros in the ALCS. It wasn't. I would criticize him 100%, but I wouldn't be this like out of my fucking head crazy about it until a team that has a $290 million payroll is in last place. Big difference there between making the playoffs and, yeah, sure, like being a 100-win team every single year, which is nice. And there is something I do see the value in, like being competitive every single year and having a chance. So I would reserve my, like, not even reserve it. Like, I didn't have as much of a hate for Cashman as I do now. And the reason is because we're in fucking last place and we're 3 games over 500. And you would think that Hal Steinbrenner, an owner of this team, the owner of this team, would not be okay with that. And that would lead to him making changes, which he's going to do with Aaron Boone, but that just as, once again, as a scapegoat option, because that's what Brian Cashman's idea is. I feel like they're almost one brain, and you know who
Yeah,
wears the pants in that brain. It's Brian Cashman. Because this is another thing, like it really comes across almost like Bob Clappers was dissing him a little bit. Hal's like kind of soft. Kay pushed back on that. He said Hal is very outgoing, very social, which that doesn't come off really to me at all. I don't know the guy, of course,
says
but
boss, by the way.
true. No, I mean that's true. That's true. That's where that does definitely come into play. But that's kind of the point I'm making. Like I don't like I believe Bob Clappers when he says Hal's a little bit on the softer side. He's definitely a pushover, I would say. So if Cashman is in his ear, Cashman might as well be the man fucking in charge. Like he is the owner of the New York Yankees. And
Yeah,
so here's what we're headed
yeah,
for, dude.
bro.
We're headed for Aaron Boone getting fired as a scapegoat, and we're gonna run it back with Brian Cashman. And that'll be that. Hopefully, because dude, Brian Cashman, I don't want to like put the vibe across like, oh, if Cashman's around, all hope is lost. Like, no, we may get fucking lucky and run into a World Series run one day, because he is capable of making like decent moves, but he never makes the move. He's so concerned about sustainability that he'll never go. And this is so fucking true. You'll never get like the top dog in free agency, and especially at the trade deadline, if you're not willing to go all in and go all over the top. Like how, like, to equate it to free agency, like you weren't going to get Garrett Cole if you didn't give him the 8th or the 9th year. You weren't going to get Aaron Judge if you weren't going to give him the 8th or the 9th year, or in his case, the 9th. With trades too, like, and we'll talk about it later with Debbie Garcia and the whole landscape of Brian Cashman as Yankee GM. He's never willing to go the extra mile to solidify your chance at a World Series. And that's why, what have we seen for quite some time now, especially with this core? Playoff appearances, back-to-back 100-win seasons. You get in 3 LCSs in 5 years. Congratulations. But because we never go over the top to make the move, which falls on Brian Cashman, that's why we're having this conversation right now. And I'm very scared we're going to have that exact same process repeated again next year and again next year and again the following year, because he has 3 more seasons left. So
we're in it
dog.
very nicely, Dan. No, I like that.
Dog. Yeah, I'm reading more. I'm trying to become a little more articulate. Dude, once I'm articulate with my words, it's fucking over. This is over. Game over, bro.
Yeah, it's it's tough sometimes just expressing your thoughts into words, and I have that problem too sometimes, just because it's like the way I know the way I feel about the Yankees, but then like putting it through words, it's a little bit difficult. But last thing I will say on Cashman is
no, does like when I can't probably express myself, I want to make this point because it sounds like a good one. I just want to say on the articulation thing, the feeling of knowing how you feel but not able to properly express it, it's tormenting. So that's why I'm trying to work at
I agree.
better at every day.
No, it's tough.
Go on.
It's as individuals like Dan Rourke and Patrick Hennessy, it's very difficult to convey our emotions into speech.
You're 10 times better than I am. I'll tell you that right now. I think you're phenomenal at articulating your point.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Like I wish I could do it as well as you. And then it'd be game over, but it will be soon. Go on.
Last point on Cashman. One thing I do want to say, because I saw a poll on Twitter the other day, whether or not you think he's a Hall of Fame GM, and majority of the votes were no. And I just want to say I do think Brian Cashman is a Hall of Fame general manager. I just think he's overstayed his welcome a little bit. I think that he doesn't have that same fire he used to. I don't think he has that same drive that he used to. And I think that the start of this core, the building of this core, was a perfect representation of that. This should have been his last dance. Starting in 2016 to now should have been Brian Cashman's final chance to prove himself to the New York Yankees that he can build a World Series contender, and he's failed tremendously. And I think 2023 is the icing on that cake. It's the cherry on top of a failed core, of a failed run. And you look back even before the start of this core, the Yankees had a countless number of failures after 2009, bro. From 2010 to 2016, all those years are failures. Sure, they made the ALCS a couple years, but still no World Series appearances. So I just think that Brian Cashman flopped in his last chance. Well, what should have been his last chance, building a core for the New York Yankees. And I'm just disappointed to see that he's likely going to be at the helm of the next one as well, for the Dominguezes and the Pereiras and the Volpes, and combining that with the Judge and Cole. It's unfortunate that he's going to be the one controlling our next group of guys as well.
See, I actually look at it a little bit differently. I mean, everything you said at the end, absolutely. Like, I agree on that. I think this is more of a problem that emerged recently, because up until I think Brian Cashman deserved so much respect for the way everything was led up going into 2017. And that's where I think probably I was at a peak in terms of Brian Cashman love. I mean, we can just go through it. And also, one thing we always have to clarify is, because people mention, I posted something about Brian Cashman today. I had a lot of people tweaking. A lot of people agree with me too. But, and they'll mention how Brian Cashman was in charge. It was a GM during the 90s dynasty. Well, yes, that's true. And he made like some supplemental moves that definitely, like, he served his role as a GM and he did a nice job. Definitely didn't do a bad job. But let's not act like he created that core. I'm not just talking about the core four, but of course, he wasn't responsible for getting Jeter, for getting Pettit, Posada. He wasn't responsible for the Paul O'Neill trade, the David Cohn trade, or anything like that. I mean, the Yankees had the 90s dynasty well before Brian Cashman was ever hired as their official GM. The 2000s were very unsuccessful in Yankee land because he never really put together a roster that gelled or that would fit. And he still has never been able to acquire good pitching, starting pitching. He just has been horrible at it. And that was a big problem in the early 2000s. But even then, you make the playoffs pretty much every year. 2003, you're in the World Series. You win in 2009. 2010, 2011, 2012, you were kind of there respectably enough. Could have won the World Series. Those were good teams. And then the dark ages were 13, you missed the playoffs. 14, you missed the playoffs. But it was Jeter's send-off. It was Mo's send-off. And they kind of put as much of a band-aid as those teams as possible to make them compete. Just wasn't good enough. I was cool with that. 2015, you get in, resurgence of A-Rod and Teixeira. That was great. You make the playoffs. Cool. Another year gone by. 16 sucked. But in the end, by the start of 17, it all was like, okay, we got through this period of being the low end of the New York Yankees, what they should be, which still wasn't bad. It was 85 wins, saying goodbye to some stars and some cool moments, maybe a playoff appearance in there, still competing. And then now, come the end of that, for what was just considered our dark ages, we have a fresh new core, young, ready to go, so much money to spend, so much prospect capital that we could trade off and capitalize off of. And since then, that's where it's all gone downhill. Particularly, I would say, since the 2020 trade deadline, I think is when Brian Cashman's tenure as GM is really falling off.
2020 as a whole, yeah.
Yes, because the peak, I guess you could also say maybe Garrett Cole, which I think I talked about a couple weeks ago. But when you signed Garrett Cole, that felt like the move because we're coming off the 19 ALCS, and everybody knew you had to go ahead and get Cole, which he did. But then 2020 deadline, he does absolutely nothing. And then that offseason, you have some peasant fest of getting Corey Kluber, and let's sign Justin Wilson, Darren O'Day. And what was their moves offensively? I don't think they even did anything offensive. I mean, you brought DJ back.
They extended DJ.
Which I won't criticize. I wanted it to happen. Like, ever since then, man, they really haven't. Like, this is not where this core should have went. And I think the last 3 years is really where Brian Cashman has a big, gigantic bruise on his resume. On the topic of
it's probably like a fun one though. Like, it's probably one of those bruises that like it's like turning yellow and like you want to push it.
I do like those. Oh, I can't help. I do. I push everything. I pick everything. Please.
No, it's fun. It's nice.
Very much so. On last thing on that, because we got to move on. The Hall of Fame thing. I would say he accolades wise is probably a Hall of Fame GM, and that's not like the ultimate. I'm not dissing Cashman like for his career. Like, he's had a nice career, and I think he served his purpose for like. I wouldn't like go back in time and like. Well, now I probably would, but in terms of like 98 through, let's say 2018, 98 through 2018, 20 years, I would take that again. Like, I would not want to reverse those 20 years. But he's ran its course, dude. The time has come. Yeah. It's time to go to somebody else. So that said, I think he's probably a Hall of Famer, but you all know how I feel. It's time to fucking move on. Speaking of.
That's good.
You like that?
Let's go. Yeah, let's get into FOCO. Want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, FOCO, FOCO. They have the best Yankees merchandise, best merchandise in general, for any team, any sport, anything out there. Dan, use code
Yankees show off some stuff because I'm home. I'm in the Jersey Shore.
You show off 15% off your order. I got this nice Roger Maris bobblehead from when the Yankees actually won games. I still have to put this together, but it's a Yankees Brixels set. It's basically Legos, and I'm so excited to do this. You know what? I should have done it today because it's like a rainy day outside. It was an off day. Today was the day to do it. I might save it for like a nice Sunday evening after the Yankees lose a game. You know what I mean?
So
yeah,
the 12th,
probably. Yeah,
13th. Well, no. That's the 13th.
13th.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't have anything FOCO on me. I'm sorry. I gotta start bringing some stuff back here. But you know how I feel about them. I think they're awesome. And you guys also probably think they're awesome, because if not, you're probably annoyed hearing them all the time. But anyways, use code Yankees Avenue 50% off. Get yourself something dope. Football season's coming up. I say it every week.
Love you, FOCO. Love you, FOCO.
I'm like ready to go for. Okay, can you knock it off? That's probably so annoying in their ears. I did get new AirPods, by the way. I got the traditionals because I hate the silicone molds. I don't like the gels in my ears. They're whack. So I need a new pair. Also, speaking of football, real quick, once again, shout out FOCO, code Yankees Avenue 50% off. I watched real quick. Did you watch the Johnny Manziel doc on Netflix?
No, but I heard of it.
It was interesting. Watch it. I'm not even saying it was that great, but
Johnny Manziel guy in middle school.
Were you, dude? If you showed me that documentary in middle school, I probably would have went a different route in life and like try to play football in college because it was badass. It was cool, but yeah, code Yankees Avenue 50% off. Ready for football? Get yourself something Jets. Get yourself something Giants. I don't know, Bills. We have like one Bills fan that was really happy when I mentioned Bills during my little football FOCO shout out.
The Bills aren't.
It was like, ooh, Bills Nation. Yeah, they are, but like the conversations,
the
results obvious what it means.
No.
Oh, you think they're not?
No,
I think they are, but they're not in like. I mean, generally speaking, like geography, like they are, obviously. But like
the Red Sox are closer to us than the Bills.
The
Nationals are closer to us.
Should it be talked about on WFAN and like the Michael K show and Sports Talk Radio in the local New York City market?
Well, no,
let's be real. But
should
honestly,
we be talking about
most true Bills fans, I feel, don't feel that way. They look at themselves as something different. So
I know,
anyways,
but
code Yankees
Bills
Avenue,
fans live
shout
in
out
New York
them,
City.
15% off.
Have you met a Bills fan?
No. We don't
exactly.
disagree on what we're talking about here, dude.
Oh, okay, cool.
Well, I don't think it matters. Like, if a Bills fan were to say, like, oh, we're a New York team, like, I wouldn't care because they're technically correct. But also, most Bills
Well,
fans
'cause
know that they're not, like,
I
in the
guess.
vibe of New York City. They're something
No, yeah,
totally
I'm
separate.
sorry. Yeah, no, I apologize to Bills fans out there. I'm not dissing you guys. I don't think they're like I don't view them as like a Jets, Giants, Yankees, Mets.
They're
You
not.
know what I mean?
And they
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. Okay. Topic number three, Dan. I love how we said,
Wow.
oh, short episode. Oh.
Let's
Topic
cook
number
through
three.
these.
Eddie Martino of SMY reported that the Yankees are soon planning on calling up their number 4 prospect, Everson. Say it how you said it last week.
So, dude, it's Everson Pereira is how I know you're supposed to say it. Last week I was
Yeah,
saying Pierre, and I realized the problem
Piera.
with that is I was just naturally spelling it wrong. Like I was typing it in today, and I naturally put Peire. For
It
those
happens.
listening, it's P-E-R. This is the correct version. Pereira is the correct spelling. Everson Pereira, which is actually kind of a nice name.
Yeah, no, it happens to the best of us. Alex Pereira in UFC. I know you don't watch UFC, but yeah, same last name. And it goes back to what we said last week. You can't perform under the lights, and maybe the lights were a little bit too bright. You couldn't
Fuck
spell his name
you. I do
properly.
perform
Whatever.
under the lights. I'm under the lights every
Okay,
time I come out here for the show, and I own it. At least, I
sure.
mean, I'm not trying to
And
be bragging, but like, come on, don't diss me, dude. I always show up
no,
under the lights.
yeah,
I
for
beat
sure.
Johnny Manziel against Alabama.
No, you're more of like Johnny Manziel in the
Let's
Canadian
start talking
Football
ball.
League.
I don't want to get off track. Somebody
Um,
roasted us for it that last time.
yeah, bro, I did see that. Screw you.
No,
We
there's
do an
times we get
hour
off the
episode.
rails a little bit too much. I mean, like, I think we're good most of the time, but there was one
I disagree.
conversation we were editing, and dude, it was my fault. I brought up the most random shit in the middle of a conversation, and I'm doing it again now. So let's talk some Everson Pereira, please.
If I
Read the
were a listener,
question.
I would appreciate that we're not just robots being like, oh, Everson Pereira.
All right, well,
Just
I'm in the
saying.
mood to talk some Yankees baseball, so can we please continue?
But yeah, they're planning on calling him up soon. And he's apparently the main reason why they didn't acquire a left fielder at the deadline. Are you happy to hear this, or is it kind of just like too little too late at this point?
I'm pumped about the fact that Pereira's coming up. I'll give his stats one more time. We've talked about him. He's getting some popularity in the show. Like he's kind of becoming a main character of this. We're talking about him a lot. Anyways, between double and triple A, mostly double A, but he's hitting even better in triple. 72 games overall, 309 average, 16 home runs, a 930 OPS. And since going to triple A, he's progressed even better. 964 OPS, batting 336, and he's cut his strikeout rate down. He's very athletic, good defensively. He's a left fielder that scouts actually say could play center field as well. Like that's how good he is defensively. So I mean, this dude can ball. He's a right-handed hitter that I'm excited about. So from that standpoint, of course, like, and it's probably going to be August 19th, I believe, is the date, because if you're up for more than 45 days or have more than 130 at bats, you lose rookie eligibility status. So if that were to happen, the Yankees like lose a year of service time. It's very confusing how it works, but I know probably won't be for another week and a half before we see him. As
Yeah,
for
I
him
mean,
being the reason we don't get a left fielder, that's kind of whack. I mean, I think I still would have taken Tommy Pham in the meantime, because, and here's something I want to go back to before about the outlook for next year's team. Because remember earlier I said Everson Pereira, I think, will probably be the left fielder, which is fine. You mentioned Austin Wells. We got to also be careful about loading this team up with too many rookies in a year where we got to compete with like Judge in his prime, Cole in his prime. Talking about next year. This year's obviously a wash. But with that said, kind of same standpoint here. How can you say you're going for it and then you're going to call up Everson Pereira, who, you know, we just saw the way Volpe struggled, inconsistent. Like, you kind of assume it'll be pretty similar station, like a situation. There'll be some adjustment period, right? You're going for it and you call up Pereira to help you get to the playoffs. That doesn't make much sense. So in reality, this is probably just if they truly thought he was up, they would have had him probably a month ago. Or if they truly thought he was worthy of being up, they would have had him here a month ago. So it's just service time bullshit. I think it's all semantic crap. So I'm excited for Pereira to come up. I think it's kind of BS in the Yankees, and I don't really care much for the report. That
yeah,
makes sense.
it does make sense. I'm excited to see him come up, but I don't know. It's just I don't know. I don't find myself getting too excited over prospects coming up. Like I know Pereira is
Really?
very highly touted. He's our number 4 prospect. We have a hole in the outfield for quite a while now. If he's able to come up and be that guy, very, very cool. That's awesome, actually. But I don't know, bro. I just feel like it's kind of a Volpe situation again, where you pass on so many top shortstops for so long. I know like the left field depth wasn't really the same. We didn't really pass on too many studs out there. But did we really pass on acquiring a left fielder because we had Pereira possibly coming up in the end of August.
I
Like
don't
it's
think
just
so.
it's dumb to me, and I don't know. I don't know if it's a cost thing. I don't know what it is, but
Kind of
if
seems like they're
Pereira
trying to
comes
save
up and
face with it is the way. Like that's why I'm bummed out a little bit. It doesn't. And as for the prospect, I differ there. I'm in its own Everson Pereira coming up. I'm hyped about. Like that's one of the few things that can give this season, the remainder of the season, excitement. So from that standpoint, pumped.
I don't get excited
But I
over
just
prospect. Like, bro, I was
I
excited
do.
over Peraza coming up, and I
I
don't
wasn't.
like.
Peraza didn't do it for me. I vote like because you know what it is like. Well, I shouldn't say that about Peraza because he was a top dog and still kind of is, not officially. But like Volpe was hype. Pereira's high enough to be hype, especially when they're raking in the minor leagues, like the way Pereira is. So I'm hyped for his call up when it comes. But it very much, yeah, seems like the Yankees are trying to save face with it, that they didn't upgrade at all at the deadline. And dude, this goes way past this. There shouldn't even be a conversation. Should have had a left fielder going into the season. And we
Yeah,
shouldn't even had to worry about it. So yeah, man. Like I think in part it could be to
it's
save
whatever
face.
to me. I don't
Think it
know.
might be. I also think it might be. I don't know, man. Actually, I don't know. I don't know. It just this feels a little. This feels like a PR move from the Yankees. I guess that's the best way to
Yeah,
summarize my thoughts. You know, when we were just talking before, it sucks when you know how you feel, but you can't articulate it. I was kind of just having one of those moments. But I know this doesn't feel like the right reasons. That's why I'll put it out there. It doesn't feel like it's for the right reasons. The Yankees calling him up.
that's kind of how I'm feeling right now too. It's like when he comes up, sure, I'll feel like, oh, that's cool. Like Pereira's finally up. We've heard so much about him, but as of right now, it's like, first of all, like let me wait to see if they actually do call him up. Because it's
Fair.
obviously not set in stone. But yeah, bro, it is what it is. Like I guess calling up some young guns in a lost season can maybe give us a little bit of hope for next year, but I don't want to go into 2024 with Everson Pereira as my starting left fielder.
If he looks good, I'm not against it. I'm not against. It's just a matter of you have to supplement them around them, and this is the whole thing we talked about with Volpe. Like it's not that big of a deal if your rookie is hitting 220 while the rest of the guys are producing. Same deal with Pereira going into next year. You can't have him in left
By the
field and
way,
bank on him replicating a 900 OPS that he put in the minor leagues. Like, no, you have to assume he's going to struggle. So that means you go out and get a Bellinger and upgrade the rest of the team. That'll do it, though. Hopefully, maybe the Yankees will sweep the Marlins. And what would be
can
cool
you
is if
imagine the
Giancarlo
vibes?
Stanton had. Well, what's funny is, bro, just the way baseball works, I could totally see them getting swept in Miami, but then they play a series of the Braves next week, and they'll probably take 2 out of 3 from them. Also, something if Giancarlo Stanton can have 2 multi-homer games, he's 4 homers away from 400. Maybe he does in Miami. That'd be cool. I don't know. Socials, where can they find you, Pat?
TikTok, Twitter, at Unhinged Patrick, Instagram at True Hennessy. Also, the Yankees, Yankees Avenue, Yanks Ave Show. What's our
Yankees
TikTok?
Avenue on TikTok. Yeah.
Yankees Avenue on TikTok.
Yeah. And then Yanks Ave Show on Twitter. Dan on Rourke on Instagram. Yankees Avenue on Instagram. Yankees Avenue here on YouTube as well. We'll have some good vibes next week, hopefully. Come Monday when the Yankees sweep the Marlins. But going down with the ship, Pat. See you guys next time. Let's go, Yankees.
Her body's going like September. She burns through the night like an ember. And all those things we try forgetting, I remember. But we say we all fine, we all fine.